Wealth is the echo of a prosperous consciousness. It is not the cause, it is not the origin. It is the sound that returns to you after something has already been spoken within. Most people attempt to rearrange the echo. They try to negotiate with the sound in the distance. They try to amplify it, chase it, hold it still. But an echo has no life of its own. It can only repeat what has already been uttered. Your financial world, your material conditions, your visible supply. These are echoes. They are responses. They are reflections cast by something far more intimate and immediate. Your state of consciousness. A prosperous consciousness is not a bank balance. It is not a number. It is not a collection of possessions. It is a settled knowing of sufficiency. It is a quiet assumption that there is always more than enough. It is an inner posture that does not brace against life. You can have very little in your hands and yet feel wealthy. And you can possess enormous sums and feel deprived. So clearly, wealth itself is not the deciding factor. The deciding factor is the state from which you perceive and relate. Consciousness is the soil. Circumstances are the harvest. And the harvest never argues with the soil. It simply reveals what has been cultivated there. When you think of money, what moves inside you? Is there tightening? Is there urgency? Is there comparison? Or is there steadiness? Is there an underlying assumption that life supports you? These movements are subtle. They often go unnoticed because they feel ordinary. But what feels ordinary to you is what you have been assuming for a very long time. A prosperous consciousness does not mean constant positive thinking. It means identity. It means you have accepted somewhere deep within that you are the source of your experience, not in an effortful way, but in a natural way. You no longer see yourself as at the mercy of conditions. If you believe money comes from outside, then you must chase it outside. If you believe opportunity lives in certain places, then you must reach and strain and compete. But if you know that what appears in your world must first be accepted within, then the movement changes entirely. Wealth begins as permission. Permission to see yourself as supported. Permission to see yourself as capable. Permission to see yourself as one who receives easily. Notice how different that feels from trying to get something. Trying implies lack. Reaching implies distance. Forcing implies resistance. But allowing is different. Allowing is a quiet recognition that what you experience is shaped by what you consent to be true. A prosperous consciousness is one that has consented to abundance as normal, not extraordinary, not miraculous, normal. When abundance becomes normal to you, you stop being surprised by good fortune. You stop fearing loss at every turn. You stop interpreting temporary fluctuations as threats to your identity. Because that is what fear of poverty really is. Fear that your identity is fragile. But your identity is the only stable thing in this entire experience. Everything else rearranges itself around it. If you assume you are someone who must struggle, life will confirm it. If you assume you are someone who is always supported, life will confirm that. The world does not argue with your self-concept. It reflects it. This is why two people can stand in the same economy, and the same city, and the same industry, and live completely different financial realities. They are not responding to the same world. They are responding to their assumptions about themselves. A prosperous consciousness is not obsessed with money. It is relaxed about it. It does not cling, and it does not reject. It simply includes wealth as a natural expression of being. Think of it this way. You do not try to breathe. You assume air is available. You do not wake each morning wondering whether oxygen will arrive. There is an underlying trust. Because of that trust, breathing is effortless. Wealth, when consciousness is prosperous, begins to feel similar. There is an expectation, calm and steady, that supply is present, that resources are accessible, that ideas and opportunities flow. Expectation shapes perception, and perception guides behavior without force. When you expect scarcity, you notice every sign of lack. When you expect abundance, you notice openings. The outer world contains both at all times. What you experience depends on what you are tuned to perceive. And tuning is not done with effort. It is done with identity. Who are you in relation to wealth? Not who do you want to be? Who are you right now when no one is looking? Are you the one who hopes money will arrive, or are you the one for whom money circulates naturally? The difference is subtle but profound. Hoping keeps wealth in the future. Being places wealth in the present, first as a state, then as a fact. A prosperous consciousness feels complete before the evidence appears. Not because it is pretending, but because it understands causation. It understands that the inner movement precedes the outer manifestation. You cannot wait for the echo to change before you change your voice. If you feel small inside, money will amplify that smallness. If you feel expansive inside, money will amplify that expansiveness. Wealth does not create your sense of self, it reveals it. So the work, if we can call it that, is not about accumulating. It is about recognizing. Recognizing where you have unconsciously identified with lack. Recognizing where you have accepted limitation as truth. Recognizing the quiet narratives you repeat about what is possible for you. These narratives are often inherited. Family stories, cultural assumptions, collective fears. They can feel so familiar that they seem factual. But familiarity does not equal truth. It simply equals repetition. Consciousness accepts what it repeatedly entertains. If you repeatedly entertain the idea that money is hard to come by, consciousness treats that as instruction. If you repeatedly entertain the idea that you're always taken care of, consciousness organizes accordingly. You are not manipulating the world. You are expressing a state, and the world mirrors that state. A prosperous consciousness is generous in spirit, not necessarily because it gives large sums, but because it feels no internal contraction around giving or receiving. There is circulation. There is trust in flow. When you trust flow, you do not hoard out of fear. You do not withhold out of anxiety. And you do not grasp out of desperation. Desperation repels. Not because money has feelings, but because desperation affirms lack. And what you affirm, you experience. Quiet certainty attracts, again, not as magic, but as coherence. When your inner assumption and your outer actions align, life moves smoothly. You may notice that when you feel confident and at ease, opportunities appear almost casually. Conversations shift. Ideas arise, timing aligns. And when you feel tense and doubtful, even simple things seem obstructed. This is not random, it is resonance. A prosperous consciousness resonates with possibility. It expects alignment. It does not argue with reality. It reshapes it by inhabiting a different state. State is everything. You can perform the actions of a wealthy person and still remain in a state of lack. And you can live modestly while inhabiting the state of abundance. The state is the cause. The lifestyle is the effect. So the invitation is gentle but radical. Become internally wealthy. Feel what it is like to be the one for whom things work out. Feel what it is like to trust your own creative power. Feel what it is like to move through the world without the background hum of worry. Not as fantasy, as identity. At first, the mind may argue. It may point to bank statements, debts, obligations. But those are echoes of previous states. They are not verdicts on your future. They are reports of the past. When you shift the inner assumption, the outer must reorganize. It may not rearrange instantly, but it will rearrange faithfully. Because consciousness is primary. And when you truly understand this, not intellectually but viscerally, you stop begging the world for validation. You begin selecting your state deliberately. A prosperous consciousness does not wait for permission. It grants it. It says, quietly, I am supported. It says without drama, there is more than enough. It says with calm authority, my world reflects my assumption. And then it rests. There is a dignity in this, a steadiness, a kind of inner royalty that has nothing to do with status and everything to do with self-recognition. Wealth then becomes an echo of that recognition, not a trophy, not a rescue, an echo. And if you listen carefully, you may already hear it forming, not in your bank account, not yet perhaps, but in the way you begin to think differently about yourself. In the way fear softens, in the way possibility feels less distant, the echo always follows the voice. So speak from prosperity within, not loudly, not forcefully. Simply assume it as true. Live from it quietly. Let it inform the way you interpret events, the way you respond to delays, the way you imagine tomorrow. Because the world you see is answering something. Let it answer a prosperous consciousness.